The highly anticipated B10 generation of the Audi RS5 is almost here. Finally! If you're anything like me, a big diehard Audi fan, you've probably been waiting on this car for what seems like forever, and it's mostly just because the Germans have a horrible track record of announcing a new generation of car and only announcing the A5 or like the lower trim and then the mid trim, which is cool, but then they wait like 2 years to announce the high performance trims, the RS and the Ms. Very frustrating if you're somebody who really likes the higher trim cars. But anyways, the wait is almost over, and how do I know? Well, there's actually been a leaked LinkedIn post that I'm pretty sure has been scrubbed now, so you can't really find it, but it actually showed that Audi, the official Audi page on LinkedIn, said that the Audi RS5 is nearing its debut. Along with that, a lot of credible sources and leakers have already announced that this car will be announced sometime late February. So in this video, I'm going to go over all the information I've gathered and learned about this car ever since it started prototyping years ago up until recent day, now that we're getting a bunch of more leaks flowing through when we're close to release date. We're going to talk about the looks, the software, the performance, the interior, and more, so let's get into it. Let's first start this off by talking about the looks, more specifically the exterior. Already, I'm going to hit you guys with some bad news. No more coupes, but you probably already knew that. Yeah, just like when Audi announced the B10 generation A5 and S5 and it was only just a wagon and a sedan, that's going to be the exact same way you're going to see the RS variant be announced. Because with all the prototyping we've seen these cars driving around, there's only ever been a wagon spotted and a sedan spotted. Very unfortunate in my opinion, but looks like just Audi could make the numbers make sense. Nobody was really buying the coupe, even though they were pretty beautiful. To honor the Audi coupes, let's have a moment of silence. Okay, we're done. Let's talk about those sedans and those wagons. The front. There's something very interesting going on here, and I am 99.99% sure it is highly influenced by BMW. No, I'm not saying that this car looks like a BMW, even though it's camouflage. You and I can both tell that it doesn't look like a BMW. No, what I'm saying is the decision Audi made to make the front look the way it does is highly suspicious of something BMW has already done. You see, for the longest time, the Germans have had a problem where it's pretty hard to distinguish their lower trim, the mid trim, and the high trim cars. Of course, they would add some things to the high trim cars to make them look a little bit more unique and distinct, but it never really went all the way up until the BMW started doing what BMW does best, and that is taking a risk. They went out there with the new G series of BMWs and overhauled the entire front end. They even give it different headlights compared to like a regular 3 Series versus an M3. We all know it as the kidney buck teeth grille, whatever you want to call it. It looks very different compared to the regular cars. A very similar thing is happening here with Audi. If you take a look at the B10 A5 and S5, you'll notice that they have very short grills, or in terms of height, much shorter grills compared to what you're seeing here with the B10 RS5. The grill size difference is very intentional. I think Audi caught wind of the criticism people had about their cars looking a little too homogeneous. Talking about the actual shape and the curvature of the grill, it's a very Audi S single frame grill, big, wide, takes up the entire front, and then the front side gills that you see there, I'm happy to announce that those are actually not blocked off. You might be wondering, how do I know that? Well, just take a look at this leaked image you probably have not seen before. Yes, that's right. What you're looking at right there is a leaked actual front bumper of the new B10 Audi RS5. I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to be showing this, but screw it, we ball. Looking at this thing without camo, it's clear to see that, man, this looks good. It's a clear evolution of the Audi RS bumpers we currently have right now, but the headlights are a lot more deep set. The grille has a lot more shape. One thing I really don't like though, and you can find this in the A5 and the S5 of this newer generation, is all the sensors at the very bottom. Kind of looks distracting. I'm hoping there's an option to somehow get those out, but we'll have to see. But I'm curious to know what you guys think of this one. Leave something in the comments about what you think of this bumper. Yay, nay, in between. But that's not all the leaked images I got to show you guys. In fact, I was actually able to get my hands on the rear bumper images that leaked as well. Take a look at that. That is very, very reminiscent of the Audi RS3 facelift that we currently have rear bumper. Only difference here is something we've already seen with the prototypes, the exhaust. Audi loves putting big oval exhausts on their RS cars, which I think has always looked super cool, like it more than the dual exhaust you can find in BMW M's. But this time around, the dual oval exhausts are right in the middle, kind of like a Porsche 911 911 Turbo S, which honestly is super cool. And there's also those very aggressive fins. Looks like they're moving away from that weird squiggly lines they used to have in the B10 RS5 facelift. I always thought that bumper kind of looked a little funky. It worked, but it kind of didn't. It is in all gloss black, but I'm hoping if it's anything like the Audi RS3 rear bumper, it's also going to be available in carbon fiber, maybe even dry carbon fiber. But then what about the sides? What about the rear quarter angles? Well, it's clear to see that the Audi RS cars are going to be indeed a lot wider than anything we're used to today from this like trim level of car. The fenders in this generation though are quite different compared to what we've seen in the past. You see in the B9 generation RS5s and RS4s, they were a lot sharper. Audi had a very big thing where like they were making all their lines on the side of their cars very, very, very sharp. Looks like they're moving away with that and kind of going with a more bubbly aesthetic. Not sure how to feel about it. We're probably gonna have to see the entire body without camo and in good lighting and in the real world to actually get a good look at it. But if we know one thing about Audi, they usually make very good looking RS cars. So let's hope for the best. Moving on to the interior. It's gonna be very similar to the one you can find in the B10 Audi S5. And for some of you, you're probably moaning and groaning, and I get it. A lot of people do not like the interiors, the overwhelming screens that are in the current B10 generations of cars from Audi. But there is one thing that we can kind of speculate Audi might do to increase the quality of this RS interior compared to the stuff you can find in the lower trims, and that is adding more options for extended leather. You see, this is something that BMW has had for a while now in this type of class of car at this type of mid-range level, right? Audi is on the other side of this where like they have not made leather available for people to purchase within the 5, 4, and 3 series. Basically anything below the 6 series that they sell, you're not getting leather on top of your dash or at the bottom. While in the other camp, BMW and Mercedes, they've been offering it if you just want to pay for a little bit more. I'm not sure if that has something to do with like the VW hierarchy and how they don't want Audi to be like extremely luxury or extremely powerful, extremely track focused. And so they kind of just keep it down by limiting the offers that you can get. But if Audi wants to be competitive in the interiors in this day and age, they're gonna probably have to offer some sort of full leather, because while BMW offers you a full orange, light blue, white, off-white interior, Audi can't just be stuck offering you black plastic on top and the bottom anymore. And then there's two other things we can kind of expect from the interior. One is something they kind of announced near the very end or recently in their RS performance cars, and that is carbon bucket seats. You see, the current RS carbon bucket seats are very, very, very nice, but they do have a couple little flaws, especially for a luxury sports car. One, they are manual. Two, they only come in one flavor, and that is Alcantara and dry carbon fiber in the rear. Cool, but like we could definitely use a couple more options, Audi. Thank you. One other thing I forgot to mention is that the RS carbon buckets, they are nice, but they're actually not available in a lot of markets. And by a lot of market, I mean mine. I live in the US, and no, we have not gotten Audi RS carbon buckets. Why? Because I think that has something to do with like seat safety laws that for some reason the US just doesn't have the right compliance, or Audi couldn't make it work, whatever. We just don't get those cars. But since, again, like the competition has these things, I would highly expect Audi to somewhat come with a newer generation of these carbon bucket seats that are compliant, more customizable, and available in just about every single US market, or not US market, but just about every single market. Now let's move on to performance. Now, this one's a little tricky because there's some things that we know, and there's just some things that are just somewhat of a mystery. So we're gonna have to make an educated guess. Based on all the information I was able to gather, it's pretty clear set that Audi will be sticking with the 2.9 liter twin turbo V6 we have in the current RS5 with some slight updates to bring it up to power. But the biggest thing alongside that 2.9 liter turbo engine is the fact that this car is going to be a plug-in hybrid. Now that means a lot of things, but let's get into it. Now, how do we know that this car will be a plug-in hybrid? Well, that was actually leaked very recently as well. You remember that LinkedIn post I was talking about earlier where Audi was like, yeah, the new RS5 is going to be coming out very, very soon. They also said in that exact same post that, yeah, and this is going to be our very first high-performance RS plug-in hybrid. So yeah, there you go. Now, with this car being a plug-in hybrid, you can expect all of the usual negatives. Very, very, very heavy. You got to make space for the batteries, you got to make space for the motors, and this isn't going to be some mild hybrid system. From what we understand, it's going to be the full fat thing where you got to plug it in and then you got to be able to charge it. So yeah, that's definitely going to add some complexity and some weight. But the positive side to this, or if you can even say that, is based on the information I've been able to gather, the claimed horsepower that we might be able to expect goes all the way up to 639 horsepower. If that's true, we might be in for a treat. It's clear that Audi is going to have to compensate for that weight somehow, because they can't come out with a new RS car and make it slower than the previous generation because they added so much weight. So we're expecting big power gains up to 600 plus horsepower. But there's also the other cynical angle you could take here, where you could say, well, in what world would Audi come out with a car with that much horsepower? They don't really have a good track record of coming out with newer cars that are substantially faster than the previous generation, or fast enough to beat their competition. But we can all hope for the best. Hopefully Audi delivers. But then what about the new tech in general? Is there anything crazy we can expect from Audi in this new generation of car? Well, there's one thing we already talked about, and that is the plug-in hybrid system. It's going to be a first for these guys, but they do have the VW Group backing them up. And as we all know, the VW Group owns a lot of different brands, Lamborghini, Bentley, etc. And a lot of those other brands have already been using plug-in hybrid technology in a lot of their latest cars. So I'm sure all that expertise is probably going to trickle into Audi some way, somehow. But with that switch up in the powertrain, we can maybe expect some more fun features coming to this specific RS car. I'm sure you guys have probably already heard the Audi RS3, the new generation that came out, came with something of like a drift mode, but also they don't really call it a drift mode for maybe legal reasons. And it's not really like it sends all the power to the rear, but it's basically encouraged for you to do donuts and skids and whatever you want with your RS3. The first time Audi's kind of endorsed that sort of thing in any of their RS cars. It'd be really weird if they didn't trickle that technology all the way up to something like the RS5, while the RS3 got it. And that also includes the newer generations of RS6s that's supposed to be coming out sometime later this year. I'll probably make a video about that too, because there are some leaks on that as well. Let me know if you guys want to see that video next. And to give this whole drift mode thing a little bit more credibility, there's videos out there of prototype RS5s, the B10 generation, being swung around by Audi test drivers around the Nürburgring. And they do this multiple times, almost like they're trying to induce oversteer on purpose to test some sort of system that would allow oversteer to happen more easily. So yeah, to recap, hybrid tech, meaning this thing's going to have instant torque, charging port, and you're probably going to be able to drive it on pure electricity. And this thing might also be getting somewhat of a drift mode. Very exciting. Now, with all of that said, all of those things we want Audi to bring to the market, when can we expect this thing to be announced, and when can we expect to order it and see it in showrooms? Well, like I said at the beginning of this video, very, very soon, and sooner than you might think. Very prominent leakers and Audi enthusiasts in the community have already said that this car will be announced February 19th of 2026, and that you'll be able to order this car later in March. But keep in mind that this is likely for the European market. You see, what Audi does a lot of the time, and again, this is one of those infuriating things, is that they will announce the car in its home continent, I guess you could say, so somewhat in Europe, and then like 6 to 7 months later, then they'll actually announce it to other markets like the US. So yeah, we're going to be a little bit of a wait. We're probably going to see this thing sometime late fall if you live in the United States, which I'm hoping isn't the case, but again, we will have to see. That's all the info I got for you guys right now. Let me know what you think about all this. I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.